It's time now for us to enjoy the poem of Hiawatha and learn how he grows from a little baby to eventually the leader of his people, and how he learns all about the nature all around where he lives. I'm going to read it all to you now, and what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to enjoy listening to it, but also looking at the beautiful illustrations that have been created by Susan Jeffers. Some of the language and some of the ideas are quite unusual and a little bit tricky. But over the next few days, we're going to break the poem down into small sections where we'll be able to think a little bit more closely about all of the ideas and the vocabulary. So I'm going to share my screen with you now so that you can see the pictures really closely. And the blurb told us that often this poem is sung because there are certain rhythms that you'll be able to hear. Look carefully at the illustrations to help you find out what's going on and listen to the words as I read this poem to you. By the shores of Gitche Gumee, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rose the black and gloomy pine trees, rose the firs with cones upon them. Bright before it beat the water, beats the clear and sunny water, beats the shining big sea water. There the wrinkled old Nokomis nursed the little Hiawatha, rocked him in his linden cradle, bedded soft in moss and rushes, safely bound with reindeer sinews, stilled his fretful wail by saying, "Hush, the naked bear will hear thee," lulled him into slumber, singing, "Ewa-yea, my little owlet, who is this that lights the wigwam? With his great eyes lights the wigwam. Ewa-yea, my little owlet." Many things Nokomis taught him of the stars that shine in heaven, showed him Ishkuda, the comet, Ishkuda with fiery tresses, showed the death dance of the spirits, warriors with their plumes and war clubs, flaring far away to northward in the frosty nights of winter, showed the broad white road in heaven, pathway of the ghosts, the shadows, running straight across the heavens, crowded with the ghosts, the shadows. At the door on summer evenings sat the little Hiawatha, heard the whispering of the pine trees, heard the lapping of the waters, sounds of music, words of wonder. "Mini-wah-wah," said the pine trees. "Mutwa-ashku," said the water. Saw the firefly, Wawa-tasy, flitting through the dusk of evening with the twinkle of its candle, lighting up the brakes and bushes, and he sang the song of children, sang the song Nokomis taught him. Wawa-tasy, little firefly, little flitting white fire insect, little dancing white fire creature, light me with your little candle. Here upon my bed I lay me, here in sleep I close my eyelids. saw the moon rise from the water, rippling, rounding from the water, saw the flecks and shadows on it, whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "Once a warrior, very angry, seized his grandmother and threw her up into the sky at midnight. Right against the moon he threw her. 'Tis is her body that you see there." Saw the rainbow in the heaven, in the eastern sky the rainbow, whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "'Tis the heaven of flowers you see there, all the wild flowers of the forest, all the lilies of the prairies. When on earth they fade and perish, blossom in that heaven above us." And there you can see little Hiawatha, no longer a baby, but now a small child. When he heard the owls at midnight, hooting, laughing in the forest, "What is that?" he cried in terror. "What is that?" he said. "Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "That is but the owl and owlet, talking in their native language, talking, scolding at each other." Then the little Hiawatha learned of every bird its language, learned their names and all their secrets, how they built their nests in summer, where they hid themselves in winter, talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's chickens. Of all the beasts he learned the language, learned their names and all their secrets, how the beavers built their lodges, where the squirrels hid their acorns, how the reindeer ran so swiftly, why the rabbit was so timid. Talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's brothers. And that is the poem all about Hiawatha, how he learned to understand the world around him, and how old Nokomis taught him everything that he needed to know. I'd like to pause the video now, look at your home learning sheet to see what you're going to learn next. How did you get on reading the next part of the poem? There's certainly some tricky vocabulary and ideas. Did you manage to make a good prediction about what they might mean? Or perhaps you looked some of the tricky words up in a dictionary? Well, I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're going to read this part of the poem together, and then I can talk to you about some of the tricky words and ideas that are in these verses. So sit up straight, everybody, look carefully at the words and have a really good go, a really good try at reading these verses with me. Many things Nokomis taught him of the stars that shine in heaven, showed him Ishkuda, the comet, Ishkuda with fiery tresses, showed the death dance of the spirits, warriors with their plumes and war clubs. She did show him a lot of things, didn't she? I wonder whether you knew what fiery tresses are. This is something to do with Ishkuda. If you look at the illustration, I think the illustration is showing us Ishkuda. Have a think about the word fiery. What root word do you think it comes from? That's right, it comes from the root word fire. So if something is fiery, something is on fire. And if you look, you can see a face here. And I'm wondering whether this is Ishkuda. And you can see that something is on fire around her face. Can you have a good guess what you think tresses might be if you look at the illustration? I'll help you now. Tresses are strands of hair. And I think if you look back at the illustration now, you can see we've got hair on fire. Fiery tresses. Let's carry on. Flaring far away to northward in the frosty nights of winter showed the broad white rose in heaven, pathway of the ghosts, the shadows, running straight across the heavens, crowded with ghosts and shadows. There's an expanded noun phrase in that verse that describes part of heaven. It tells us there's a broad white road in heaven. I wonder why the road is white. I wonder what time of year it is in this picture. I think a clue here, it tells us it's frosty. So I wonder whether the road is white because it might have frost on, or perhaps it might even have snow on. And the road is broad. Broad, what do you think that means? It's to do with how wide the road is. If we've got a thin road, we would use the word narrow. Broad is the opposite. Broad means the road is wide. It needed to be wide because what was crowded on the white road in heaven? It was the ghosts and the shadows. Let's keep going. At the door on summer evenings sat the little Hiawatha, heard the whispering of pine trees, heard the lapping of the water, sounds of music, words of wonder. Minnie wah wah, said the pine trees. Mudwayushka, said the water. Did you manage to say some of those sounds? I particularly like the water because actually you could almost hear the water crashing onto the shore. Mudwayushka, Mudwayushka. Let's just look at one word in this verse. Lapping. I can tell it's a verb because it's an action word. It's something that the water is doing. And I can also see it's got a suffix on, so you can change its tense. Lap, lapping, laps, lapped. What is the water doing if it is lapping? If you've ever been to the seaside, you might have heard the lapping of the water. Lapping is when the water gently comes onto the shore. And then it goes back again, the lapping of the water. Let's move on to the last verse for today. Let's see what Hiawatha is going to see now. Look at the illustration to help you. Okay, here we go. Saw the firefly, Hiawatha, flitting through the dusk of evenings, with the twinkle of its candle, lighting up the brakes and brushes. And he sang the song of children, sang the song Nokomis taught him. Hiawatha, little firefly, little flitting white fire insect, little dancing white fire creature, Light me with your little candle, ere upon my bed I lay me, ere in sleep I close my eyelids. I wonder which words were tricky for you, or which ideas. I can see another really lovely verb here, flitting through the dusk of evening. It's describing how the firefly, the Native Americans call them Wei-Wei-Tassi, how it moved. If you flit somewhere, if it's flitting, I wonder how it's moving. Have a little think. An alternative word that I might use to try and explain what flitting means would be darting. I think the fireflies are moving in lots of different directions very quickly. That's what flitting means. I had to do a little bit of research to learn about two words as well. I wonder if you might be able to spot them. They're two nouns, they're two things, objects. It's here, look, lighting up the brakes and brushes. So this is telling us the firefly is lighting something up. Well, I know it's not brakes as than we have in the car, because that doesn't make sense. And I don't think brushes are the brushes that we use to sweep things up, because that wouldn't make sense either. These are homophones, words that sound like words we already know, but have different meanings. I've done a little bit of research because I didn't know about these two words. And I made a guess first. I know the firefly are going to be outside, and in the illustration I can see they're in woodlands. So my prediction was I thought they were going to be some sort of plant. And I was right. Brakes are a type of a bamboo, a North American bamboo. And brushes are shelters that Native Americans would have made using lots of different trees and branches. So lighting up the brakes, that's bamboo, and brushes, the homes that the Native Americans made. I hope you enjoyed those two verses. It's time now for you to look back at your home learning sheet to see the next part of your learning. Work hard, everybody. Work with resilience, because this poem, Hiawatha, is certainly challenging for us, but that is a good thing. Bye-bye, everybody.